Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. So, go straight into it like I always do. Been wargaming this for a while, trying to figure out what we're looking at going forward. Okay. After all, I still think the best way to prep is to have a specific goal in mind. Now, y'all know I believe the biggest threat to life, not our way of life, but life in general, is political. Okay. I've talked about it many times, and y'all know which side of the fence I'm on. That shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. So I got out the crystal ball this morning and started looking into the future based on facts and historical precedents. Again, y'all know I'm not a conspiracy theorist by a long shot, okay? Logic and common sense are my tools. All right, so into the morass here. Now, by now we all know COVID was a ruse. It turned out to be a bad case of the flu, okay? Don't believe me? Here are some facts, right? The average death rate from the flu in the United States is about 650,000 people per year. When we have bad strains, which we do occasionally, the number jumps up to about 1.4 million. Now, COVID deaths this year were about 2.5 million. But if you remove the 40% of the deaths that took place in nursing homes, you know, the extremely high-risk people in the first place with underlying conditions and at the end of life as is, no offense, okay, but there's a reason they're in nursing homes, okay? That means about 1.5 million semi-healthy people died from COVID. And again, I'm not taking into account all the car accidents and falls down the stairs that were miraculously given a COVID cause of death, okay? So again, the numbers, the true numbers, are actually about the same as when we have a bad flu season. So how does this all play into politics, you know, that I calculate is the greatest risk to life, okay? Well, the World Economic Forum and the totalitarian elitists need us to believe that this is Armageddon, okay? They needed COVID to be a mass catastrophe, and they rushed their nefarious plans of the Great Reset as a solution to the pandemic. Well, it didn't work out the way they planned. COVID just turned out to be a bad strain of the flu, but it was too late for them. They'd already let the cat out of the bag, you know, so now they had to figure out how to keep the people in a state of panic, okay? They announced the English strain and the South African strain and the Brazilian strain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to rebuild the fears in people. Now, the problem is when a virus mutates, it mutates into a less dangerous strain, not a more dangerous one. But they played on people's lack of education on that matter, and the mainstream media was more than happy to help, okay? The other problem is people started to smell a rat early on, okay? People realized quickly that masks were silly, even if you wore 2 of them, okay? Or 3 or 4 or whatever goofiness they're coming up with. And then the jab was rolled out. You know, problem is there were enough of us that researched it and got the word out quickly as to what the ingredients were, what the side effects were, what the overall, you know, just looking at an overall rush to market without testing it, okay? Now, you see, 30 years ago, this Great Reset might have worked, okay? People weren't as connected as we are now. There was no way for me or any other content creator or blogger or doctor, for that matter, to get the word out unless the media was involved. And we all know that wasn't going to happen. I mean, I used Tuesday night's contest that we had this week as an example. We had people from all 50 states in that contest. Now, what are the chances of me being able to normally communicate with somebody from North Dakota or Oregon or New Hampshire or whatever? You know, without the internet, chances are very little, okay? So information wasn't easily shared 30 years ago before the internet like it is now, okay? So, you know, slowly as we go through this, we all know conservative voices are being silenced by the technology companies, all right? You know, we all know it, but, you know, it's too late. The cat's out of the bag, okay? We've all been able to talk, okay? And if you don't think there's other ISPs out there that'll serve the red states, okay, you're fooling yourself. I mean, we all know, you know, DuckDuckGo or whatever, okay? You know, Google's a monopolistic entity, but it's not the only platform, okay? It's just the biggest and everybody knows who they are. They're certainly not the only one. And as we've seen with Twitter and Gab and all these other ones, and what was the one, Parler, they pop up real quick once something's gone. So getting back to this, what's going to happen? Well, we're already seeing it, okay? You have states, Texas and Mississippi already thumbing their nose at the totalitarians, okay? And I expect you're going to see a lot more of this very soon. The red states are going to say to hell with all these federal mandates and open up their states to normal life, whatever that is these days. But at least the schools and businesses will be open, and masks will be used as nothing more than fire starter. Okay, that'll piss off the feds, and they're going to try to flex their muzzle and declare another federal lockdown. Okay, the blue states, of course, will be more than happy to join in, and the red states will, of course, refuse to comply. Now, in talking to law enforcement officers and talking to military people, okay, they're also going to refuse to enforce any of these mandates. So that poses a huge problem for these New World Order followers that you have in Washington. And you can bet they're going to scramble to come up with a way to get the red states back in line, okay? Of course, that's going to be pulling the purse strings. They'll try to cut off financial funding to those states. Now, that's going to come, but, will it hold up? Remember, Trump tried to pull funding from sanctuary states, and that stalled in the courts, okay? That's why it was so important for Trump to appoint the Supreme Court justices as he did. So yeah, they'll try to pull federal funding from red states, but it'll probably fail, okay? So what's going to happen then is the red states are going to start to flourish, at least for a while, okay? Capitalism will again take control. The blue states will suffer under the nanny state policies, and the red states will, again, get back to normal. Okay, we're already seeing companies leaving leftist states, especially California, by the thousands. Okay, and they're moving to red states where taxes aren't as ridiculous. Right? Again, it all comes down to finances again. So basically, what this is the beginning of Balkanization. It's just a real soft way of doing it. Okay, I've talked about Balkanization many times before. The red states will slowly but surely distance themselves from the blue states. Now remember, the majority of the food comes from the red states. The blue states are primarily industrial. Now, in that respect, not much has changed since the 1860s and the Civil War. Okay, the difference this time is that it's not nearly as difficult for the red states to ramp up manufacturing as it is for blue states to ramp up food production. Now, sure, California grows a ton of food. Okay, but think about New England or New York or something. Not great soil, certainly not a climate that's conducive for growing or raising food for, say, 150 million people. Okay, so when all this happens, you got to remember, it's too late for the WEF to cower back, and go, okay, we'll put our plans on hold. They're already in this thing. I mean, all in, all the chips on the table. They've already decided. So they're going to start by trying to get law enforcement officers and the military as their hammer, okay? But you have to remember, most law enforcement officers and most of the military are conservative. They took an oath to protect the Constitution, and that's where their loyalty lies. They certainly aren't going to do anything to upend the Constitution, not only because they took that oath, but also because their personal morals and their personal beliefs will not allow it either, okay? So where does that leave the blue states and the totalitarianists? Okay, the United Nations with blue helmets is where it leaves them. Okay, now remember, the U.S. is far ahead of, Europe is far ahead of the U.S. on going socialist. Angela Merkel, Emmanuel Macron, Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa, and even Prince Charles are all leftists. They support the World Economic Forum and the one world government ideal. Well, then you add the Chinese and maybe even the North Koreans, and you have a formidable force that is already aligned with our current administration in Washington. Okay, the leftists have said repeatedly that they're coming for your weaponry. That's no secret. They're already silencing free speech. They're already condemning Christians. They're demonizing Caucasians, ironically, because most of them are Caucasian too. Okay, you see, this is the future. Not Nostradamus at hundreds of years from now. This is the future hundreds of days from now. The World Economic Forum is backed into a corner, and they know it. As usual, communists never think about the consequences to their actions. Communism works great on paper, but it completely ignores the human will. As much as Washington disagrees, people aren't stupid. They see most of what's going on. They see prices going up. They see job losses. They see the rich getting richer, and they fight back. Okay? In order for this whole Agenda 2030 thing to work, people have to be complacent. It works in Europe because most Europeans are complacent. Americans aren't. Okay? We've always had a screw the man mentality. It's what our country was founded upon, and that belief has been instilled in a lot of people from birth. Okay? We fight for what's right. We don't just lie down and take it. That's the thing. We see more and more people every day starting to prep. We're seeing more and more people buy weaponry every day. We're seeing more and more people buying silver and gold every day. How do we know this? Well, it's obvious when everything is in short supply. Ammo, precious metals, petroleum products, and eventually food. Remember, only about 30% of the stimulus checks were actually going back into the economy. What they were saying, we're going to give the people the money so they can stimulate the economy. That's why it's called a stimulus check, all right? But only 30% of the money was going people buying stuff. The other 70% was paying off bills. For 4 months straight now, average consumer debt has gone down. People have been using this money to pay off their credit cards, okay, or paying off their student loans or their car payments or their mortgages, okay? That's a good thing, okay? For an economy that needs debt to survive, which is our economy, okay, this is very troublesome. The elitists want us all to go bankrupt so they can be the knight in shining armor to come in and save us all, okay? The people, you and me, okay, we just outsmarted them, and that's going to destroy their plans. Now, don't expect them to go down with the fight, though. This is a battle between good and evil, and one side or the other has to be obliterated. One side's gonna be. You just need to be ready. Pinball out.